Welcome to Vision Studios. This is your boy Luis Robles. This is my awesome partner, Peter South, owner of iTrip, a business that manages short-term rentals. And we're glad to be here in one of his properties. He's sponsoring our channel. So thank you, Peter, for being here. And thank you for letting us use one of your properties. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Luis. Yes, we're in one of our properties again. This property is really cool. I just want to mention because it's kind of neat. They have an awesome Guns N' Roses pinball machine. And who doesn't love pinball? Come on, Luis. Right?
What's pinball?
Oh my goodness, pinball's so much fun.
I think I played that on the computer.
Man. So, but yes, we are here in one of our properties, and today we are interviewing a really amazing business person. His name is Mike Whalen, and you guys are in for a treat because he's been in business for quite a while. He's run several successful businesses, and today he actually does a lot of digital marketing, which, man, I am so super excited to learn about because, as we know, how you market yourself online is one of the most important things you can do as a business owner. So I'm really excited to talk to him. Mike, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mike is the owner of Noptom, which is a digital marketing, I guess, company. But that's not where you began. And part of our, as education as business owners, we like to learn, like, how did we get here? What lessons have we learned along the way? And you've been in business, multiple businesses, but you started off running a trophy awards company once upon a time. How is it that you became the question I want to know is, Luis, how do you become an entrepreneur? What is the thing that you're like, I can start a business? Let's start there at the beginning, Mike.
So now I got to dig into my black hat of all the crazy schemes that I've come up with since I was a kid. So I think I'm a serial entrepreneur, primarily because I just always was looking for a better way to do things and somehow migrating those into a way to make money. So whether it was the neighbor who wasn't cutting his lawn, I'd go knock on his door until he finally relented and allowed me to mow his lawn, to having a paper route or whatever. It was just always trying to find some way to make money. And that was easier for me to do on my own than to do it with somebody directing me and telling me to do something. So technically, I've never really had a job except when I was in high school. I had a job for Marie Callender's as a dishwasher. And I showed up on a Friday at Marie Callender's, and literally probably the worst job that I've ever had. The kitchen was disgusting and gross and greasy, and I gave notice that evening. So I go to my manager at 2 o'clock in the morning. It was a shift from like 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. I tell him at 2 o'clock in the morning after doing cleanup, Pete, I can't do this. And his name was Pete, right? And he says, I didn't expect you were going to last. He says, but I know of somebody that's looking for somebody, and I think you'd be really good for that job. So he kind of put me in touch with another guy that owns a trophy shop, and I worked for him all through high school. So literally I had a job for one night and then a job all the way through high school. And while in college, I started my other business. So my first business.
Wow. That's
legit business, not the things that I did as a child.
So you only lasted one day dishwashing?
1 day dishwashing.
Oh, interesting. I lasted 2 weeks.
I'm pathetic.
I lasted 2 weeks dishwashing and I was done.
Yeah. So
it sounds really fun.
Oh, it's a blast. Scrubbing greasy pans is great.
So you take one job, and then this guy introduces you to a guy that runs a trophy shop, and you're basically his apprentice of sorts. Maybe not. Maybe you didn't view it as apprentice, but looking back, is it kind of like your apprenticeship into running a trophy awards business?
No, I think I learned that I really like working with my hands. So in that job, it was a lot of fabricating, manufacturing, working with tools, all the things that I've always loved as a kid, and that translated into a business eventually as I got into college. So, yes. So I don't think he was a great apprentice because I don't think he was a great businessman, nor was I when I started my business. But I think over time, things get better, and you've got to migrate and change and make different choices. So, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's really interesting. So when you start this shop, I mean, that's one of the hardest things, right, Luis, is starting. What kind of advice do you have, or what kind of advice do you have for people that were like starting when they're young, like you were? Like, if you could say, young Mike, you should have maybe thought of this when you were starting in your little award shop?
And how old were you when you were starting?
19.
19. Wow, that's amazing. That's
I
a lot
started
of
when I
courage.
was 23. So
A lot of
that's,
courage.
that's a
No,
big
that's
gap.
okay. There's nothing wrong with starting a business when you're young. I mean, we live in a country that gives us the opportunity to do that. So if you're in for it, it's worth taking a shot and going for it. So good for you. It's exciting.
It is.
And I think there's a little bit of crossover in what I was doing and what you do now. So, which is interesting, and we'll have to catch up on that maybe later. But so yeah, 19. And to answer that question, my first reaction to that would be to create a business plan. And in that business plan, there should be two things you should be looking at. How do I have a business without destroying my relationships, including girlfriends, wives, kids, whatever, right? There's got to be some way to have time for yourself so that you're not just so focused on your business that you sacrifice what's most important. And secondly, that there's an exit strategy. You need to make sure that you're creating something that's saleable. So from the very beginning, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, or however long you want to be in it, make a plan to get out, because that was the mistake I made with that business, is I was in it so long that it became a job. So if I'm going to have a job, I might as well work for somebody else and let them take the stress, right? Because it's a lot of stress to own a business now. And over the years, from back when I first started that to now, there's a lot of differences in the way businesses are run. A lot more government regulations, insurance issues, all kinds of, employees. It was so much easier to run a business back then than it is now. So yeah. Definitely the big thing would be relationships, and make sure you've got a way to get out.
So you need to find a balance in your life for you to, like, that's what you're saying. Like, obviously when we have a business, when you own a business, you make a lot of sacrifices.
Right.
So what were the sacrifices that you had to make for you to be able to sustain that business that you were in?
Well, there's a lot of time. You have responsibilities to not only your family, but you've got responsibilities to your employees. So there's people. I think people are the most difficult piece of owning a business. I would always say that, whether it's a customer, an employee, your family, trying to juggle all of that is the most difficult part. So the sacrifices that I think I made were, if I've got a project that has to get done, do I not get it done, right? Or do I get it done and give up something else? So trying to find that balance, like you said, is very, very important with owning a business.
Yeah, so it sounds like part of the problem you had was you were having success, right? So you had to complete the orders, and that takes away time because you're in the awards business. You have to make a product, right?
Yeah, so I had amazing success very early on because the guy that I used to work for shortly after went through a divorce, and I had worked for him long enough to where most of his large customers knew me, and they migrated. I mean, literally came right in my door. So it was from his shop when he went through the divorce and shut down into mine. And almost overnight, while I was in college, my business exploded, which then created an issue where I had no time to finish school. Also, go to school.
I was about to say I dropped out of college too to start a business.
Go to school, Luis.
For sure. Well, that's really, that's sort of, the best and the worst case. You feel sad for your friend, the guy that you work for, but you get the win, and that's sometimes you get lucky. I don't know if that's luck, but you're so young starting this business, like you have to hire someone, I assume, at some point. Are you just using your buddies to help you?
Yeah,
or are you trying to do everything? Are you trying to be everything, or are you saying, I got to hire somebody? Because that's the question we ask all the time. When do I hire?
When do I hire people? Yeah.
I think that's a decision you've got to make. There's a financial decision to make, right? Because if you hire somebody, you've got to look at the numbers and say, okay, if I bring this guy in and he's going to cost me $1,000 a week, or whether it's $500 a week or whatever that is that you're paying them, you've got to say, okay, that's going to come out of my pocket. Can I take that time that he is taking that piece of work from me and use that to generate more revenue? I mean, there's I think about the best way to put it, but basically you need to think about how you're going to replace that piece of income, and each time you add somebody, generate more revenue in order to offset them. So unless you've got so much work rolling in that it doesn't make any difference, which is rarely the case. I don't know what your business is like, but I'm assuming there's some ups and downs, right? So there's also
all the time. There's always ups and downs.
There's lags, right?
There's times where you have so much up that you're like, oh, I need to hire somebody, and then it comes down.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I don't need to hire somebody. So
well, you don't need to hire somebody, and you don't want to lay somebody off that you spent
Correct.
money training and preparing to do a job that you need them to do, right? You don't want to let those people go. So
yeah, because like you said, they're depending on you, and their family's probably dependent on that income as well.
right.
So it's important to consider that when you're hiring somebody, you
Right.
need to have. Did you had like a lot of sales going on? So that determined, because for me, sometimes I struggle with my business because I'm like, I don't think I have enough sales for me to hire. But like you said, like you need to have enough sales for you to hire somebody, or how do you take that in count?
Well, when I talked about the instance where all of a sudden the large accounts rolled into my door, that's when I made a decision to bring somebody in, because it was impossible for me to do everything myself at that point. And for the period, about an 8-month period, I was doing it all myself. Then all of a sudden I've got these big jobs coming in, and I had to make a decision. Well, I can't do it anymore. So then I brought somebody in, and that relieved me a little bit, and then more and more and more. At one point we had 13 people on staff. So
Oh man, that's a lot of people.
yeah. Well, it's not a lot of people in comparison to some businesses
Right.
where they've got hundreds and sometimes thousands of employees.
Yeah.
But, for me, it was a lot of people.
Yeah, 'cause-
And in a small company like that with 13 people, those are all, I'm not going to, I would say there's a balance between are they friends or are they employees? And it's hard for somebody that's been there for a long time not to become friends with them or care enough about them and their families to where making a hard decision is, as hard as hurting somebody that's literally in your family. So,
Man, that sucks. If you have to fire somebody that's your friend.
yeah.
Like, did you have to do that at some point?
Yes. Somebody that I cared about, a very close friend of mine, was going through some issues at home. I don't want to get into details.
Right.
We are still friends today, but there was a gap in there where, firing him, it was for performance issues, but firing him was very, very difficult. Probably the most difficult thing that I had to do as a business owner. And it took about 4 years before we came back together and we were friends again.
Oh, okay.
And it took an apology on his part, and I probably didn't handle it well at the time because I was so angry that it just.
And you were young too.
I was
right?
young, yeah.
Yeah, firing people is one of the most difficult things
No,
that you can
sometimes
do.
it's not.
Well, it's
Sometimes it's pleasing, but usually it's not.
It's still unpleasant. Yes, sometimes people need to go, but as you know, your employee, he made his own choice. And as a business owner, we have to realize, like, you set expectations. If they can't meet the expectation, the employee made their own choice. It's not on you. You're relieved of that burden,
Yeah.
And so they made their choice, and as hard as it is, you have to do that as a business owner sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, because that could affect the performance of your other employees too, right? Because
most definitely. You've got a bad egg in there. Sure.
because I worked in a restaurant where we had bad employees, and you can just feel the energy. It's not the same, right?
Right.
And I will always like, dude, you guys gotta fire this girl because she's just creating controversy around it. However, after that happened, did you hire somebody else to replace him, or was it just fire him and that was it?
Well, yeah, we got to remember the circumstances, but there was work rolling in, so yes, we had to replace him. So we had it was actually the guy that managed my print shop. So
Awesome.
He was actually the designer and managed the whole production facility. So he had 4 people under him. So I rolled one guy up, brought in another one down below, and started training again. So I did the best I could to cross train people. So if the print shop was slow, we could always move them over to one of the production sides or something. Awesome. And have them do other stuff. So the best I could, I tried to cross train my employees.
That's smart, cross training your employees. Because when I worked in the restaurant, most people only get hired to be a server, and that's all they knew how to do. Do you think it's important when you hire somebody to actually let them know, hey, you need to learn not just one side of the business, but another side just in case they have to cross over? Do you think that's smart for a business owner to do?
I don't know.
Their employees?
If my manager at Marie Callender's would have told me when he hired me as a dishwasher, hey, if you work really hard in 2 weeks, I might move you to bus or something like that, I might have stuck around longer than 6 hours.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's smart to do, I guess. Because, I mean, I did it because when I got hired, I was just hired as a busser. And then I was like, hey, I can run food too.
Yeah.
And that kind of kept me into the business. And that brings more community around, right? Because you're part of not just the bussers or whatever, but you're actually part of the food runners, and then you become part of the. So, I like that you say you own a print shop. So was it he said there was an awards business and also a print shop.
Yeah, so we focused on corporate awards, trophies, and
corporate awards
for corporations. Probably about 10 years in, I decided to kind of dabble in screen printing, and it started with printing on metals and things like that.
So cool.
But then it ended up going into T-shirts, and so we had a fully automated, 2,000 square foot print facility with belt dryers and 2 automatic presses. So yeah, it was a big facility by the time.
Oh, that's cool. And you owned all of that.
Well, bank owned it, but yeah, and SBA loans, sure.
Okay. When did you know that it was time for you to ask for a loan in your business? Because most of the business owners, like myself, I'm struggling right now. I only have a small press, and I want to take my business to the next level.
Right.
Do I get a loan from the bank, or do I just keep investing everything that I made of my business?
I think it takes some planning and some thought.
Okay.
I think the financials have to support it, because you wouldn't be able to go to a bank and get a loan without financials that support it. So if you can show that you are at a plateau, and by adding a piece of equipment or multiple pieces of equipment and a footprint on your shop, you can then generate a revenue that would first off service the debt of the loan, but also create more revenue for you and grow your business. Cool. Then I think that's the point at which you make the decision to do it. So
you gotta look at your finances.
Basically. It's always about finances, right? You can't make any business decision. You can't hire somebody without knowing what the effect is going to be.
So finances it's probably the most important thing in the business.
Oh, most definitely.
Because I heard that sales cure everything in the business. So if you have no sales, you're all stressed out about it. You're like, how am I going to pay people? Yeah. How am I going to get this consistent going? Oh man, something that I struggle with sometimes. Don't you, Peter?
Are you charging enough? And there's so many pieces of that.
Because how do you come up with the pricing? That's probably the biggest struggle for a business owner, and I struggle with that myself. So
yeah, part of it is what your competitors are doing. Part of it is how loyal your customers are. Pricing is really difficult. Always has been. But it's still, you have to make a profit. There's got to be enough to pay for your overhead. There's got to be enough to pay for your employee, pay your salaries and pay yourself, and there should be some left over in the end, so that you can create a pool of money to be able to do something to grow your business, right? Because if there's nothing extra at the end, then there's no way for you to grow. And you might as well just have a job, because at that point it becomes a job.
Yeah, it becomes a job. Yeah.
Right.
That's good. That's a good point. Know your finances.
It does affect
your finances. Yeah. One of the thing people don't think about, because they're just like, I'll just be in business. And it's very smart to think like, will investing this make me more money? Right. I want to go back to something you said earlier at the very beginning, exit plan. So you did this New Line awards shop for a long time, but that's not where you are now.
Right.
And so you learned a lot, but you're like, exit plan. So walk me through, you exit this business and then you move on to something else. What's happening in your life? What's happening in your mind, your life, so that you're like, I have to end this business. I need to go on to something new.
Yeah. So make a long story short, I shut New Line down, actually liquidated, sold the book of business, and then liquidated the assets during COVID. The reason I chose to do that is, if you can imagine, March, I can't remember the exact day, but we have phone calls coming in on Wednesday when COVID hit saying, hey, I've got this order going and I don't know what's going to happen. The governor's talking about shutting things down, and if it shuts down, we're not really going to need this stuff. So, we've got hundreds of orders on, booked and on the bench in production. By Thursday at noon, it was mass chaos of people calling and canceling. So it was ghost town, multiple employees in there. We're all staring at each other, looking at stuff on the bench, looking at stuff that's booked on the wall. And it took me a couple of weeks to say, this is not going to be easy to get out of. I didn't particularly care because I don't think there was enough resources in the business anymore because it had gotten very, very competitive, not only locally but online. And I'm going to get into that in a second. But it took a decision to, for what it's worth, sell the assets, the customers off, and the actual physical assets off, and move on. And part of the reason that was an easy decision for me was for the prior 10 years, I had been very focused on e-commerce, and the e-commerce part of the business is what was really doing well. So it was doing well up until COVID, but the big piece of it was that it took a long time to get there, and there was, multiple website versions that we had built, e-commerce websites, learning how to market it, and most of that was by trial and error. And I hired people, fired people to do it over time, and learned a lot. And most of it is that when you hire somebody to do that, you've got to make sure that you know who and what you're hiring, because a lot of them say they're doing work and they're not really doing a lot for you. So whether it's hiring them to do your paid advertising or your SEO or whatever it is, it takes some. You want to understand who they are they actually performing for their clients, and so forth. So
one of the things that I heard is like when you're gonna hire somebody, go check on their car, see how clean they have it.
Yeah,
they'll have your business like that.
Yeah.
So is that I think that's true, honestly, because I've seen some people that have just messy cars and just have a messy life.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I wouldn't hire those people.
Well, that's fair and not, because if you look at the car that I tote my kids around in, and then my car, let's go look at my car. I'm driving my car now.
I don't want to look at my car.
If I would have showed up in the Odyssey, you'd say, "Oh man, this guy's horrible." So,
I know I showed up in the Jeep and I'm like, this is so dirty. I don't even have kids in here.
Yeah, so anybody that has kids gets the car thing.
Okay.
So.
Well, I think it's interesting that you close your business down, but you think like, I see a need based on past experience. And so you're like, you look around and say, there are a lot of people in the digital space saying, I can provide you the best marketing, get you to the top of the search engines. And your experience was not really.
Yeah.
And so you see this need that there is a real lack of, I would guess, knowledge of a lot of digital marketing companies. Is that kind of accurate, what you're saying?
Yes and no. So let me talk a little bit about the transition from where I was at to how I ended up in what I'm doing. So probably 4 years prior, I found some developers that I really like to work with in the platform that I had my e-commerce store on, and got to know them really well. They're actually in India, and spent some time with them here in the U.S., and we kind of developed a relationship. And at that point, I thought, I could develop a business helping people create e-commerce stores. And I started discussing it with my wife, and, ultimately I knew in the back of my mind that was a plan and something I wanted to do. And when I did this, almost immediately one of my suppliers came to me and said, would you be interested in building me an e-commerce website? So one of the things that was happening in the industry that was making it so difficult is suppliers were going direct to consumers and cutting out the level of shop that I was the middleman.
Oh, okay.
So you probably see that where you're at now, right? So he had always tried to stay away from that, thinking that he was going to hurt the small trophy shop. But he was realizing that if he didn't do it, he wasn't going to be in business for very long. So he comes to me and says, hey, you think you could build me an e-commerce site? Because he knew that New Line was successful. And I said, yes, I definitely can do that. I don't know that I can, because I signed a non-compete with the guy that I sold my book of business with. So I had to go to him and say, hey, this, I've got this opportunity. I'm wondering if you'd be okay with it. And the guy signed off on it and gave me a thumbs up. So, Greg hired me. I created an e-commerce site for him, and we've been, working on that. He launched, it's about 3 years now, and he's doing quite well. So
that was the main starter for you to take off building this business.
Yeah. So that was a fully customized e-commerce site. So it required a lot of attribute selections to be able to do it. It's not off the shelf, being able to capture engraving information, do designs online, things like that. So it's fully customized site for him, along with the full content writing, and I do his digital marketing as well. And then it's grown from there. So, and the plan with the business is not to have a bunch of clients. So I have no interest in having hundreds or 200. 200.
It's not about volume; it's more about quality.
About quality. So if I have 20 clients like U.S. Acrylic Awards, I'll do that all day long, as opposed to having
30, 40 clients. Because it's one of
or
things.
100 of them. Well,
Uh-huh.
Normally it's a volume thing in the industry. The more people you have that you say you're doing their SEO for, you can send them a report on a monthly basis, but don't do anything. It's a lot of revenue. It's not what I want to do. I want to change lives. So.
And that's one of the things that I want to do too, is help people.
Yeah.
Because I know you mentioned that word. And you basically found this business because you wanted to help somebody, right? And a lot of the business owners nowadays, they just want to start a business. They just want to sell.
Yeah.
They forget the part of helping other people in
Right.
their business. And I like how you say it. Like, you were helping I don't know if it was your friend that knew you or your supplier, right? They wanted
Supplier. But we were acquaintances through work for several years.
So helping people, it's one of the ways people need to understand when they're starting a business.
Right.
Right. So, and going back to what you're saying about you met some people in India, how did you meet these people? Because like, let's say me, I want to start a business and I want to do not maybe similar thing that what you're doing, but maybe I want people to manage social media for me.
Yeah.
How did you find these people?
In this case, I had a developer in the States here that was kind of lagging on getting work done for me. So I think it was a side job for him or something. I'm not really sure, but he was either couldn't handle it or wasn't handling it, and I needed to look elsewhere. So I just started Googling, Nopcommerce developers, and there's all these U.S. Developers here. But I felt like I needed something different. So I actually reached out to a company in India. And they got back to me, and I started a conversation with them. And surprisingly, I didn't feel comfortable with them. But one of the guys that was with them at that time that I was communicating with had gone off to start his own company. So he reached out to me, and I started communicating with him, and I felt really good about him. So he and another gentleman started a business out there.
And you started your own business out here?
I may have been his first project, and
he gave it all. That's good.
Well, they created what I needed, which was created the ability to layer transparent PNGs on top of each other, and create product with scaling and the whole bit. So they did an amazing job for me. Then proceeded to work down the line of cleaning up my website over time, and the two of them and myself became pretty close friends. They came here for a conference in Las Vegas, went out there and met with them for a while, took them to my cabin up in near Flagstaff, and took them to the Grand Canyon. I mean, these guys have never been out of India before, so seeing the Grand Canyon at 6 o'clock in the morning.
That walk down there
to see the sunrise. I remember.
Was it cold?
It was freezing cold.
Yes, I've seen it many times. Yes.
I told him, I said, "Do you guys have any idea how cold it's going to be over there?" "Yeah, but we got to see the sunrise." Everybody says you got to see the sunrise, and I said, "All right."
It is beautiful. I will agree, and I never want to see another sunrise again, but I will see it over the canyon. Luis, you said something. You said helping people, and so Mike, my question to you is: helping your clients. What advice do you have to help new business owners, any business owners? What advice are you giving someone to say this is what you need to think about to improve your either e-commerce or your digital marketing, search engine optimization? What kind of advice do you have to help people?
Well, I guess you have to start with a baseline and understand what you've got. So if and when I take on a client, I do a complete and thorough review of digitally. And that starts with where their URL is hosted, right down to where their DNS is managed. I'm saying things that you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but
I was about to say, is this
It's
another language?
It sounds a little bit like voodoo.
I kind of know what URL is.
Then looking at, what kind of website platform they're on. Is it a, Wix, Square, WordPress? What kind of e-commerce are they using? Are they using WordPress with WooCommerce? Or, taking a look at that and then expanding from there and getting a good picture of what kind of traffic they have, and looking at analytics, and do they have any paid accounts going? Are they doing any social media? Is it paid or is it purely organic? So starting with a baseline, then you can take a look at it and say, okay, how much do you have to spend on this, or do you have money to spend on this? If you do have money to spend on this, how can we get you from A to B, from B to C, from C to D, and create a plan from beginning to end to start going that direction? Because the shotgun approach to digital marketing is about the worst way you can handle it. Having a plan, and a lot of times it starts with just cleaning up the content on your site so that somebody comes to your site, they don't say, oh, wow, I got to get out of here quick because these guys have no, it's similar to your car, right?
Yeah, correct.
So if the website looks horrible, nobody's going to be interested in working with you. But if the website looks great, and it doesn't have to be a super expensive website, you've got to get them to engage. If you can get them to engage there, then it makes sense to start driving, whether it's paid traffic or organic traffic. And Google is changing so much in the way they deliver search results now. So their new search-generated experience with answering questions, I think the organic traffic's going to change a lot, and there's this weird, almost limbo stage right now where organic traffic is very strange. So,
yep. That's what I've been noticing, that organic traffic seems to be taken off a little bit more. People just want to get involved in every single thing that they're in.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're referring to something else. I'm referring to the way Google is delivering search results. So I don't know if you've been invited to or just naturally seen some of the search results in the way they're coming, where Google will answer a question for you. So if I type in, where can I find black T-shirts near me, right? Google will answer a question for you, and it may not be delivering information to you. Or how do I print T-shirts or something like that, right? So they're actually answering a question, and it's different. I'm still trying to understand how they're going to monetize it, other than the fact that I think it's going to drive more paid traffic for them. So organic, Google doesn't make anything on organic other than the fact that it creates a platform on which they can add 3 paid ads on top, get local ads and so forth paid for. So the only reason there's organic on Google or Bing is so that they can generate revenue by selling the prime spots.
Okay, so they're just trying to generate more money.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're doing.
So their new AI is really good, and a lot of sites are going to need to be rewritten once it shakes out and we actually understand. The old days of just reading metadata, a meta title and a meta description, and Google knowing what that page is, your eyes are rolling back in the back of your head, Peter. Come on, man. I'm not boring you.
I just think but it feels so overwhelmed. Like, as a business owner, all I hear is, Peter, you need to understand this. But then I say, I don't understand this. And I mean, that's why we need guys like Mike to help us understand. Like, I'm just like soaking in your knowledge, because you're just saying like metadata, smack-a-data, flap-a-data. I don't know what that is. It's all gobbledygook to me, but man, this is why we need guys like you to help business owners understand that, because clearly it's important. We all know Google is important to your business. I've gotten clients from Google searches. I don't know how, but I have. And so I don't, if I could get more clients from Google searches, I would love that. And so having people like you educate us, that's why I'm just like, so much great knowledge.
Oh, why am I getting so much bloated with this information? Because I am too, honestly, because as the new age is hitting, we have to adapt to AI.
Right.
And I've been testing out some AI products on there.
Yeah.
So do you think businesses nowadays, they have to educate themselves on AI?
I think yes, but they have to realize, as good as AI is getting, I had this conversation yesterday with a client that I'm in the process of onboarding, and that is that he's got a fully localized campaign going right now to drive business to him, and it's driving business to him, but it's also very limited in that Google's AI is looking at his website. It's looking at his Google My Business profile. Do you know what that is?
No.
So there's 3 ads at the top that are paid, right? And then you've got the 3-pack basically where you've got a map and then you see the 3 ads right there see more. Okay. And then you've got basically your organic. So Google has started to change their page. Bing has gone the same way.
Okay.
However, Bing is still kind of using metadata along with the AI and delivering better results. I personally like the look of the Bing, the Bing search results better now than Google's. But so getting back to that, yes, AI can deliver results. Much more difficult to track because Google will tell you you've had this many calls, this many local directory requests, this many, and a lot of times it's very, very vague. You can't really drive in exactly what the ad was that was delivered to show what the result was. Whereas if I actually build a campaign out in Google Ads, I can build it out and create individual ad sets within a campaign that are specific to hats or specific to T-shirts or specific to shorts or whatever you're doing. So if somebody says, I'm looking for embroidered caps, right? I can build a campaign or an ad set that's specific to that so that the content that's delivered to you in that ad says, it's got a headline with your company name on it. It needs to be branded along with practically answer the question they want in the title and then come back and give them the information that they need, right? And then I can take that ad and I can start to change it and work on it until I dial it in and look at the results on that specific ad with how many times it's been delivered, how many times you can't do that with a local campaign on Google, which is easy to set up. And it's really, and honestly, that's a great way for a business to get started. But at some point, if you don't want to waste ad spend, the best way to do it is to create a managed account.
Wow, that's amazing, Luis. You ever think that in your business, you could create a specific campaign for each item that you want to sell? What do you want to specialize in? That's really neat, don't you think?
Yeah, honestly.
And you can break it down into embroidery and screen printing or whatever you want to do.
That's super cool.
So
I think you have to mentor me. Seems like you've done it for a long time. So it seems like you have a lot of experience in that. Because I struggle with there's the SEO part of my business. It's like I don't really work on SEO at all.
Yeah.
So, and I know it's very important for people to work on their SEO. Like I have a friend of mine who's basically grown his business because of SEO. All he gets is Google reviews. People get to review his business, and then from there he drives those customers to give him to go to his website and book an appointment. So I'm like, this is happening, and people are not understanding that we are in the digital age.
Right.
If you're not investing online, that's what I tell Peter all the time. I'm like, Peter, you got to focus online, because I think personally, if you're being self-aware, it's like that transactions are happening. It's online. People got to trust you at first, right? Because they're not gonna go and buy a shirt from me.
Right.
So I tell them, the more you post online, the more you see that people are just jumping in online. And I tell them all the time, you got to post as much as you can so people get to know who you are. And then you got to optimize, like you said, your website. Because those are some of the things people do not consider. It's optimizing their website. I wasn't even considering it myself.
Yeah.
But you would say that businesses now need to make the transition where they stop being so only word of mouth to online. That's mostly for you, Peter.
That's what we're hearing, a lot of that today, for sure. Yeah.
So, what are your recommendations for small business owners that they're not so much online? Do you think they have to start jumping into the online world more than what they're considering?
I think it depends on their business model, to be honest with you, and how much business they want and where they want their business to come from. The word of mouth is still an amazing way to develop a local business. I don't care what anybody says. And that starts with solving the problem of your customer, right? If you do a really good job solving their problem, they're going to tell somebody, and if you can get them to tell somebody face-to-face, that's better than a Google review, because Google reviews get stacked, right? And then you got to go back and search for them. So I tend to, if I'm trying to make a decision blindly without having a referral from somebody, I don't go to the top reviews. I go look at the bad ones. So I intentionally
Well,
go out of my.
interesting.
No, I think I'm not the only one that does it.
Yeah,
there are a
that's
lot
true.
of people that do that. So I'll sort and I'll say I want to look at the 1s, 2s, and 3s. A lot of them you can kick them out because, they didn't have my stuff ready because my cat died or something like that, right? And it doesn't make any sense, but a lot of them are just bad.
And
course.
that helps you understand you as a customer, you're seeing as a bad reviews. And sometimes business owners don't really take that in count.
Yeah, so if the bad reviews have a pattern that they didn't have it ready on time, they didn't, the food was bad, if there's a pattern to the bad reviews, then there's a pattern to the way they do their business. So that's what I'll do is I'll look for a business.
Take in count business reviews. That's what I'm going to read.
So, and you've got to manage your bad reviews. So if you do get a bad review, you need to reach out to the person, whether it's digitally and you respond back and say, hey, I'm so sorry. Take ownership of the mistake you made, because if you don't take ownership of the mistake you made and apologize online, it just looks like, oh, that's a bad review that this guy just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's ways to write around the ones that are just weird, bad ones that sometimes you get bad ones that aren't even a customer of yours, right?
That's happened to me with Turo, because I do Turo business on the side, and I've gotten bad reviews. But I actually reply to the customer, so people can see that too. They're like, it's actually somebody. There's a person. There's not a robot.
Right.
That actually cares about the people. So I would say, like, one of the things I like so far is that you care a lot about your customers.
Right.
Like, you care 110%. I feel like you even care more about me now than we just met, right? But what I'm saying is, some of the times, like, as a small business owners, we don't take care as much, or we don't really care as much of our small people that we have as our clients. Mm-hmm. You think it's important for small business owners to care about every single client? Because sometimes they get so busy, they're like, oh, I already have enough clients, I don't care.
No, I don't think it's okay. I think it's important for you to care about people and your clients, yes. But there are good clients and there are bad clients.
Okay.
And you'll find that the bad clients oftentimes take up way more time of your time, which is incredibly valuable than it does. So I got to the point in my business where if they were a bad client and they required a lot of time out front, or they always complained, or it was really difficult to please them, no matter how hard I tried, I would start to increase prices with them. And that sounds really bad, but the truth of the matter is,
I've done it.
I was in a position to do it.
Yeah.
You almost need to, and if you talk to anybody, a financial planner or anybody like that, their goal is to have a book of business, right? And they will start to grow that book of business with their highest dollar people at the top. And as they add another, if they want 100 clients, like when I talked about having 20 clients, mm-hmm. right? At some point, I'm going to have to say to my clients, because they're not spending money, right? Or they've decided that I'm doing so much, I've done such a good job for them or whatever, that they're not paying me like they need to manage their account. I'm going to have to say, okay, this is a gap for me that I need to release it. So, because I will only take on one client of a certain kind of business. I won't take on 5 dentists. I won't take on,
because I had to let some clients go too. And even if I'm a small business owner, there was this guy who would take, like, he would show up to the shop, and then he'll sit there, make me design something for him. He spent like 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I have so much stuff to do. I got to sell. I got to do this. I got to do that. So when do you know you got to let them go? When is the moment you're like, I'm done?
I think it comes down to finances again, right? Mm-hmm. How much is your time worth? If that guy spent 3 hours in your shop, did a $250 24 t-shirt job with you, right? Because it's t-shirt shoes,
mm-hmm,
right?
Yeah.
T-shirts. Mm-hmm. You know as well as I know, you just lost a ton of money, right?
Yeah.
Because somebody's got to go back there and make those screens and do all of that stuff. That 3 hours could have been spent working on developing your business or selling to somebody else. Now, does it mean you just cut them loose and say you're fired? I don't think that's a fair way to do it. But you got to have a hard conversation with them and say, hey, look, man, if you want me to keep my prices the way they are to be able to provide for you the way you are, I can't spend 3 hours with you. And if he doesn't like that and he keeps coming in and doing that, then you do have to say, I just can't continue to do work for you. That way, you're not understanding.
Yeah, the way I did it, I just stopped replying to him.
Yeah,
I was just nice enough to be like, you know what? I don't think my quality meets your expectations. Yeah. That's all. I text him, and he just kept calling me. He even showed up to the shop, and I'm like,
yeah, if it's about complaints and stuff, I think it's okay to do that.
Yeah, he was just a pain in the butt.
Sounds fun.
Sounds like you have to deal with that all the time.
I don't know what you're talking about, Luis, but
Well, you're in the vacation rental
Yes,
business, and having owned one of those, I know you've got good renters and bad renters that come back regularly.
Indeed,
right?
we have some guests that show up at our property that are special.
Yeah,
without a doubt. But
so those special ones are the ones that I did not ever ask to come
Yes.
back to my property.
yes, yeah.
Oh, sorry, that's booked.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, I don't know how yours was, but with me, I got to choose whether or not I allowed him in my house. So I got to review them and look at them, and I would make a decision on whether I want. So if they came back a year after, man, I kept detailed notes on exactly how they left.
Denied, yeah.
Sorry, I got family thing going on that weekend or whatever it is. And it's okay to do that because you've got to make money. The business is about making money and providing a service for somebody. And if they come and trash your house, you can't provide that service to the next person that's going to come in because you're shut down for 2 days.
That sounds like I struggle with that a lot because of Turo. People want to rent a vehicle, they don't care.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, like I left specific details of this person. Be careful with this guy. He's gonna give you a ticket. He's gonna flat out your tires. He's not gonna tell you. So, as a small business owner, you have to take that in count, right? When you're offering a service, you gotta understand that some people are not gonna care.
Yeah.
Right. And it shouldn't hurt you, right? Your feelings should be put aside.
Right.
And you should understand this is about, like you said, it's about obviously to make money, but you want to help them too.
Well, it's when I talk about solving a problem, business is about solving problems for people, right? So,
And the bigger the problem you solve, the more you're going to get paid.
Well, Luis, I mean, I think we just barely scratched the surface of the knowledge Mike has. Don't you think? Like,
I gotta meet up with Mike again, man.
I have a lot to think about, metadata, whatever that is. I don't know what that. I still don't know what that is.
He's so stressed out. He's like, oh man, there's so much I have to learn online.
Technically, you know what it is because you see it every day.
But Mike, you have really opened our eyes to, so many different things.
Look
in
at
business.
my notes. I can't even write.
We took a lot of notes today. Thank you for coming on the pod. Like, I think we're gonna have to have Mike back because I can sense that there's a lot of knowledge that you have to just give to the community. And we really just scratched the surface here. But going out this week, Luis, this is my takeaways that I heard. And I got two things. Number one, exit plan. Luis and I actually talked about this before you arrived. You have to have an exit strategy, and I don't have one. And I'm the sole owner of my business, but it's something that I'm going to think about this week as I go about my business. And the second thing, understanding Google or understanding how digital marketing works is so important. I really want to focus on that. And we talk about it a lot, Luis and Mike. You really opened my eyes to things I don't even know what they are, but man, I know they're important. And so I know I need to focus on that. So that's what I sort of took away this week. Luis, what did you hear that was really stood out? I took away
every single thing that you said. No, I do because
Luis is a sponge.
I just like to learn, and the reason why we started this podcast is because we want to learn. And I learned a lot of things from you, like managing your campaigns. That's highly important. Like, people are not considering every single thing that takes online. And on the print shop side, it's like you exit it out. Maybe it wasn't the best time to exit it out, but when do you exit it out? Like you said, Peter, learning when to exit out your business is highly important.
Don't be afraid to move on, right?
Yes. That's one of the things I'm afraid of. And actually, with my print shop, I'm like, should I let it go? It's making me money. Or should I let it go? Should I not? But honestly, thank you for being here. Mm-hmm. I really learned, and hopefully, Peter, you learned a lot too. And I'm just like right now. So I want to say, what are your socials? Where can people find you? And if you train people as well?
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is just Google Noptom, Noptim, and you'll find me. So it's pretty.
Do you offer any?
I don't do any. I don't do any paid advertising.
Okay.
I don't do anything. I literally do not go out of my way to go build a client base. When I finish a build and get somebody pointed in the right direction, I continue to manage their properties, and then I go and I seek somebody else out, and then I work on, like I talked about, looking at where they're at, creating a plan for them, getting them moving in the right direction, and then I seek out another client. And my goal is to find a different kind of business to work with, so that the content that I write for a business is never stale. So if for some reason